Of all the parts of the VR lesson, briefing and debriefing are arguably the most important for language learning. And they are also the parts that teachers sometimes skip or rush. In this video, I want to show you why these bookends of the VR experience are so valuable and give you concrete strategies for making them work. Think of it this way. The VR experience creates a shared event, something vivid, memorable, and unique to your class. Briefing students gives them language they need to succeed in that event. Debriefing is where they process, articulate, and build on what they've experienced. Both are essential. A good brief does three things. It sets the scene, it gives students the language tools they need, and it assigns roles. Setting the scene means activating the context. If you're doing the burglar puzzle escape room, tell students they are going to be detectives trying to catch a thief. Show them a still image from the environment if you have one. Ask them, what kind of language do you think you'll need? What do detectives do? What questions might they ask? This activates prior knowledge and builds genuine anticipation. For the outdoor survival scenario, you might start with a quick discussion. What would you do if you were stranded in the wilderness? What would your priorities be? This creates a communicative need before students even put on the headset. Giving language tools means pre-teaching or reviewing key vocabulary and structures. You don't need to pre-teach everything. In fact, part of the value of VR is that students encounter language in authentic context. But for lower levels especially, a short vocabulary preview or a phrase bank on the board can reduce cognitive overload and give students the confidence to communicate more freely during the session. For example, before a science lab session, you might write on the board, connect the to the. What happens if it looks like it might? These are functional, task-specific expressions that students can pick up and use immediately. Assigning roles is crucial, especially when only one or two students are wearing headsets at a time. The headset wearers need to know that they are the eyes and hands inside the virtual world. The outside team needs to know their job is to guide, advise, and problem solve using language. Consider assigning specific roles. A navigator who gives directions. A vocabulary checker who looks up unknown words. A note taker who records key decisions and outcomes. During the VR session itself, your job as a teacher shifts. You're no longer the center of the lesson, the VR experience is. But there are some important things you can do. Monitor the outside team, not just the headset wearers. Are they communicating? Are they using English? If conversations drop into the first language, a gentle prompt is usually enough to redirect them. Take notes. Listen out for interesting language use, both effective communication and errors that could become useful teaching points in the debrief. This is far more valuable than intervening in the moment. Use the mirrored screen. Point things out to students who aren't engaged. Ask questions. What do you think they should do here? What would you say? Manage transitions. When it's time to swap headsets, have a clear signal and a smooth procedure. Brief downtime between turns is normal. Have a discussion prompt ready so the momentum doesn't stop. The debrief is where the real language magic happens. Students have just had a shared immersive experience. They're motivated to talk about it, they have strong memories of it, and they have genuine opinions about it. Your job is to channel that energy into a structured language production. There are several debrief formats that work particularly well with the VR4LL 2.0 environment. Narrative reconstruction. Ask students to retell what happened in sequence. For the outdoor survival scenario, they might sound like, first we had to decide where to make fire. We chose this area because. This develops chronological narration, past tense use, and cause-effect language. For this environment, the provided teacher's guide actually suggests gathering around the virtual fire pit where they can retell stories. Decision analysis. Ask students to identify a key decision they made during the session and justify it. We decided to because, or in retrospect, we might have. This is excellent for practicing conditional and modal language. Feedback and evaluation. Students evaluate each other's performance, not in a critical way, but constructively. Who gave the clearest instructions? Who could have communicated better? This mirrors real-world professional feedback and develops metalinguistic awareness. Writing tasks. The debrief doesn't have to be entirely oral. Students can write a report from the perspective of their character, a diary entry, a news article about a crime scene, or a safety report from the lab. Because the experience is fresh and vivid, students typically find these writing tasks much easier to engage with than prompts they have no personal connection to. And don't forget language feedback. The notes you took during the session are valuable here. You can draw attention to effective language you heard, which reinforces good use, and address common errors in a supportive whole-class way. Avoid singling out individual students. Instead, write errors on the board and invite the class to correct them together. To give you some concrete examples, for the burglar puzzle escape room, an alibi activity is a natural follow-up. 2 students play the suspects, the rest are police, and they must question them about where they were and what they were doing. The VR experience gives the crime a context that makes the roleplay feel genuinely motivated rather than arbitrary. For a game of phones, with its fantastical characters and riddles, you could invite students to write their own fantasy story, inspired by the world they visited. They already have ideas from the experience, you're just giving them a structure to develop those ideas further. For the restaurant and bar, a customer complaint or a cooking demonstration roleplay works extremely well. Students have seen how service interaction and food preparation work in the virtual environment and can now dramatize their own versions with more language confidence. Whether that's a front-of-house scenario, a recipe explanation, or a chef's commentary on a dish. For the science lab, a great follow-up is asking students to write and present a safety report or experimental log in the style of a real scientist, describing what they did, what they observed, and what conclusions they reached. You can also run a class debate or discussion around the scientific or ethical question connected to the lab content. For the outdoor survival scenario, students can work in groups to create their own survival guide, a written or oral document advising future explorers on what to do in similar situations. A map drawing or route planning activity also works well, building on the spatial and navigational language used during the VR session. The more deliberately you plan your briefing and debriefing, the more language value you extract from every VR session.